Every city keeps a door it tells you not to touch. A door with scratch marks on the inside. Tonight, we turn the handle. If you thought the monsters were in stories, stay because the story started with you. Welcome to Untold Scary Truths. Asterisk I was counting because the dark had erased every other way of knowing I was still moving. 354, 355, 356, and even the moon had the decency to hide, while thorny branches scraped my hands and the wind crawled into my ears like a whisper I couldn't quite catch. Behind me there were footsteps that matched mine perfectly, stopping when I stopped, starting when I started, as if either someone walked in lockstep with my shadow or my imagination had grown legs. And I kept counting 418, 419, until the ground ended in a bitten black edge and the city below turned to a smear of cold lights, and I understood the math of one more step. So I took it, and there was no impact, only a slab of pressure on my chest and a red bruise of light behind my eyelids. And when I opened them, I hung upside down a man's height above a scatter of knife-gray stone, the wind raging everywhere except in the still air that held me. And then a voice like velvet dragged over steel said bravo, as if I'd been auditioning. And he was suddenly there without arriving. Tall and dark and entirely patient, eyes like thorns of winter. And he spared me the questions by answering them himself. Yes, I had died. Yes, my body still breathed. And no, my consent no longer mattered because I had made my choice on the cliff, and what I had thrown away now belonged to him. And if I wanted lungs to keep their little games, I would run errands, guard a prize, obey when told to stay, and persuade when told to persuade. He pricked a scratch on my hand as if the wound remembered being deeper, caught a bead of blood on a scrap of parchment that flared and went dull, called it a signature, and promised I would wake where I was needed. After which the pressure let go, and I fell properly into blackness and woke in a white bed in a room I'd never seen, with curtains like snow and furniture that didn't know my name. Fully clothed and carrying a headache like a live wire. And in the bathroom the mirror gave back not a face but a rumor of one. A smear that refused to clear no matter how I wiped. So I fled to the door and found a policeman on the step who addressed me as the owner of the house I'd never owned. Spoke of yesterday's conversation and furniture trucks and paperwork I allegedly waved under his nose. And my wallet agreed with him, my study agreed with him. The deed agreed with him. This place belonged to a man called Micah No Name, who apparently wore my height, my bones, and someone else's mannerisms in a recording I bribed from the store across the street, where a camera had watched that man tilt his head when listening, laugh with his hands, and stand in the same doorway where I now stood. And behind him, half hidden by a tree, a squat figure with protruding ears had stared straight into the lens and mouthed a message I had no skill to read, and yet understood perfectly. Your master says hello. Bring a mirror, midnight, the park. And when midnight came, the park held its breath, and the command to kneel entered my body like a second spine, and the ground softened under my knees. And the mirror I had bought at random burned in my pocket, exhaled a pallid light when I touched it. And the voice without source told me I would remain in this city that didn't let go. That my prize was a soul so clean it would blind angels. That I would guard it from lesser vermin until the hour ripened. And the light in the mirror, he said, would be my reminder of whose shadow I was. And then the crows erupted, the wind folded itself away, and the park returned to grass and benches and a shiver that didn't stop until dawn. The house tried to keep me by making every road circle back to its front step, but the graveyard still let me in. And I found a new stone with a new polished name, Alexander Voronov, 42, dead 9 days. Save US cut beneath the dates like a whisper with teeth, and near it I saw, for the first time fully, the trio that hunted together. A winged figure with a corkscrew beak and fever-bright eyes, a stag-legged brute whose hands ended in ruin, and a pale crawler with a human mouth and a serpent's tongue. drifting toward a man-shape with a blurred face who looked at me in mute plea before the three fell on him like hunger and shredded him to fog while the grass kept its innocence. And I threw a stone that passed through the winged one as if it were rumor and not bone. And afterward a man with a cane stopped me on a crook street and called me son and told me not to run because the one I followed wouldn't take me anywhere good. And he said he had known the one who wore my place before me, and that boy had not made it. And in his voice lay riddles and warnings that fit the night too neatly. And he told me choice was a door that never truly locked. But the city closed like a fist, and the house opened to me like a trap that had learned to smile. And then the mirror began to warm against my ribs in sleep and show me a girl I had not yet met. A young woman with wheat blonde hair sleeping with the ease of the forgiven while shadows circled her like dogs that knew the fence had teeth. And the old man peered over my shoulder without asking and called them not ghosts exactly, but the unburied grief of this place. Driven by a hand I would have to find, and by day I made small errands near her. A flower shop that gave the street a scent like forgiveness. And I bought arrangements for no one and carried conversations I did not deserve while watching the shadows thin when she laughed and thicken when she drifted into thought. For happiness made a moat and sleep made bridges. And one rain-smudged night she caught me under her window and asked why I had been passing by for a week, and I had no time to lie because a thing with claws came out of the dark and scraped my back as if trying to unzip me. And I pushed her behind me, and the mirror burned and bled light, and the beast screamed itself into a naked butcher on the lawn, the same man who sold meat across from the shop. And we fled inside and locked the chain, and by dawn the butcher and his house had both vanished as if inhaled and renamed. And I told her to leave the city on any train that remembered how, and she asked if I would follow, and I said I could not, and so, stubborn as truth, she would not either. And the old man arrived again without sound and forgot his cane, and his spine remembered its strength, and his eyes remembered heat, and he told me she could not leave, and two shapes stepped from the side street. One a suit filled with what had once been Voronov, and one with an animal lope I recognized. And the mirror leapt in my pocket, but the not old man lifted a hand and the light shattered into powder mitter, and the costume fell from his voice, and he called himself whatever word fit the weather warlock. Magister, teacher, and said the girl's soul was a well dug too clean, and he meant to season it with despair and hate before he drank. And I lunged, and he flung me aside, and when I woke tied on a floor with a single door and a bare bulb, and Eva gagged but bright-eyed. Beside the wall I sought at my ropes with a shard of glass until the skin burned. And rope remembered it could fail, and I freed her, and we rewound the ropes and froze as he entered younger than ever and bragged about masks and appetites, and stepped toward her, and I lit a rag with a sinner's. Steadiness and fire took orders as it always does, and found fuel as if the room had been marinated for a blaze, and we ran. And at the door Varamva's polite corpse blocked the exit, and a chair became a spear, and the spear learned a new trick in a dead. I and the dead man finally recalled how to fall. And then the house found its gas and detonated a room away, and the blast shoved the night through us, and we tumbled to the yard, where ash fell like a tired snow. And I turned to tell her we had made it, and saw a red thread on her lip, and behind her the ruined gentleman rising for one last courtesy with claws through her throat, because she had stepped between him and me. And the sirens arrived late, and called 2 bodies an accident, because cities love stories that don't ask for gods. And for a time her light visited me in the cooling smoke, and said thank you with a smile I had not earned. And at her burial the 3 harriers circled, but could not touch her, and she rose above them like morning that refused obedience. And I waited for the punishment, and it came like thunder in a long hallway, and the street split, and I caught its lip and dirt sifted through my fists while eyeless things climbed toward me the way hunger climbs a ladder. And I counted again because numbers fold panic into smaller pieces. 357. 358, and this time when my grip failed, and I fell, it felt honest. Because here is what remains true when names are worn thin. The house will open to another paperwork miracle. The butcher will be someone else with different teeth. The warlock will put on another age and smile. The city will keep its secrets because it never learned any other trick. A mirror will find another pocket. And somewhere under the city that doesn't let go a man who tried to die and failed the first time will keep falling until the choice he made on a bitten black edge is finally finished. While above the roofs and wires the one clean soul he guarded without. Permission rises where hunters cannot follow and does not look back. If your room feels colder now, that's normal. Truth takes heat when it enters. Like, share, and subscribe to Untold Scary Truths so you're not alone the next time we turn off the lights.